Imagine you're spending $10,000, $100,000 a month in advertising, and all of a sudden you figured out how to convert that traffic at twice the rate, same amount of money, and now you're getting twice the output. And that's the power that comes behind perfecting the experience that we send the traffic to, in addition to sending the right traffic in the first place, right?
Yeah.
You put those two things together, that's how you scale. That's how you use digital marketing to scale your business.
Welcome to the Pivotal Leader Podcast with Gina Trimarco, featuring lively interviews with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their stories and best practices for shifting business from problems to profits. Sit back and get ready to pivot.
Hey, everybody, this is Gina Trimarco, Chief Results Officer of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results, and oftentimes improvising our way there. Each week on the Pivotal Leader, I feature inspirational leaders who know how to positively impact their customers, employees, and brand through culture building. On this episode of the Pivotal Leader, I interviewed Jake Baadsgaard, CEO of Disruptive Advertising. After growing one of his first PPC clients from 25 to 250 employees, Jacob realized he had a gift for using pay-per-click marketing to drive dramatic business results. To help more companies succeed online, Jake founded Disruptive Advertising, a PPC and CRO management agency that has helped hundreds of companies realize unprecedented growth and profitability from online advertising. In the 4 years since its founding, Disruptive Advertising has grown from 2 employees working in Jacob's basement to a flourishing agency with more than 90 employees and a run rate of over $12 million, putting it at number 145 on the 2017 Inc. 500 list. Pretty impressive. Jacob's ability to assess and clearly explain complicated issues has made him a favorite in a variety of forums. He's a regular contributor on a variety of blogs, including notable publications like Entrepreneur, Forbes, and Search Engine Land, where his wit and ability to make even tedious topics engaging elicits rave reviews from his readers. Jacob's humor, charm, and insight aren't limited to the written word, though. He has spoken at numerous events and webinars, including SMX, Kissmetrics, Create Nation, Unbounce, PRSA, Starfest, VWO, and others, and has a gift for both entertaining and educating his audience. Prior to starting Disruptive Advertising, he consulted enterprise companies at Adobe for 5 years, where he learned how to use web analytics to make smart marketing decisions to boost revenue and maximize returns. So let's listen in and learn from Jacob. Hey, Jacob, thanks for joining me today on the Pivotal Leader Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
Your group of people sent me your bio, which is awesome. And of course, I always dig through someone's LinkedIn profile, and I go to your website. And what I loved about your bio on their website, what stuck out to me was that you love hugs. That was really fun. But he's a hugger. I'm a hugger. So that's cool. When I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, what jumped out at me was it's like the very first thing on your profile, and it says 76% of budgets spent on Google AdWords and Facebook ads are wasted and prevent companies from achieving and exceeding their revenue targets. Wow. That's powerful.
It is. You know, it's interesting. Early in my career, I did analytics consulting for Fortune 100 companies for the first few years after college. And analytics is how you expose what's working and what's not. And what you see when you peek under the covers for some of the largest companies in the world down to some of the smallest ones is incredible.
I think it's really powerful because I think it hits a lot of pain points for so many businesses, especially, those that are a little confused on how to do things, or they gravitate towards like, well, let's just do a Facebook ad. Let's do Google AdWords. And that should be the answer. And you'll hear a lot of marketing gurus say that, that's what you should be doing. And people are not really clear on if it's working and if they're doing the right thing. And it sounds like your career path this is your jam. This is what you're really good at.
I fell in love. My first independent client was my employer while I was in college. I was married with a kid while I was in college, and so worked full-time and went to school full-time.
Wow.
When I went independent, the first people that you reach out to are your friends, family, and people that you know, right? And say, hey, I can help you. And convincing them that that's the case. Well, in this particular situation, they were a remote tech support company. And I said, hey, you guys haven't really grown in like the last 3 years. You want some help? And they're like, yeah, let's get it, help us out. And at the time they were spending about $20,000 a month on Google AdWords to drive in tech support related leads, people with viruses on their computer or whatever. And they said, yeah, we just don't know. We just feel like Google's given us everything that it has to give us. We just don't know how to grow beyond this. And I said, well, what are you looking for? And they're like, well, if we can just get more leads, then our business will grow. And I said, I don't think you care about more leads. I think you care about more sales. Do you even know what leads you're closing compared to the ones that you're not? And they're like, well, now that you say it that way, that's what we want, right? And so we connected the dots between their CRM and Google AdWords, found out exactly which keywords were actually leading to sales, exploited that. And over a matter of a couple of years of working with them, they went from 25 employees to up to 350. They went from a couple hundred leads a day to feed their sales team to several thousand leads a day. And we were able to improve the profitability on each lead and reduce the cost per lead by about a fifth of what they were paying before. And that was my moment where I'm like, holy crap, this is awesome. This is fun. This is satisfying. I feel like I'm actually making a difference in the world. And it's simple to me, but yet so many businesses either lack the bandwidth, even though they might know how to do it, they just don't have the bandwidth to do it right, or they lack the expertise. And that's where I saw my opportunity. So I jumped in and I love it. We've gone from me as an independent in my basement, operating out of there, and we've got a pretty decent sized agency now with over 100 people here now in about 4.5 years.
Well, that's perfect segue, because my next question for you was to talk about, I was going to ask you to walk me through that moment when you said, I'm starting my own agency. You went into the basement, and I know you grew pretty large, and kind of, to me, you scaled pretty quickly, at least from how many people you have on your team. Walk us through a little bit that process, that moment of getting into the basement and then getting out of the basement.
Yes. Well, I distinctly remember the moment where I realized that I needed something different than I was personally getting from corporate America. And it was in my annual review with my manager, who is a fantastic person, by the way. And I loved my job. I have nothing bad to say about it. But to see the level in which I outperformed my peer set and the contribution that I was making, not just emotionally that I thought I was making, but that was trackable down to dollars and cents. And to sit across the table and for him to say, I am so excited to tell you that I'm getting you a 9% raise this year. And it was that moment, like clear as day, that I can work at X level and I'm going to get compensated at Y level, or I can work at 10X level and get paid at 1.1 Y level. And that was the moment where I realized that I needed an environment where I put in, I could get at least somewhat proportionally back out.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that I realized that, okay, you know what, it's time for me to figure out how to go and do this. And started moving in that direction. The getting out of the basement actually was twofold. I built up a decent book of business just through my personal network. One example I already shared. The second thing is I actually had kind of like a software wholesale business for a little while that didn't last very long, but was very profitable in a short period of time. And so I'm actually, most of my entrepreneur friends tell me that I'm a little conservative. And what's interesting is that I actually had my monthly, the money that I actually had to spend in a month down to like $1,200. I mean, we didn't have any debt. We were in a good situation and had a good amount of money in the bank. And I was able to seed the company $50,000. And if I didn't make money for a couple of years, that would be okay. And that's really what, it's interesting. I had to be at that point before I was willing to take the jump. And that's one of the big reasons why we've been able to accelerate growth the way that we have, is because we had a really good head start.
So you're in the basement. How many people did you have on your team while you were in the basement?
I had 2 contractors.
And then you get out of the basement and you go into the real office scenario. And let's talk a little bit about how you were able to scale so quickly, in really a short amount, what feels like a short amount of time. I know it doesn't really feel that way when you're in it, but how were you able to get to the level that you got to?
I think there's a couple of pivotal stages in every business's growth. And one of those is when getting past founder-based selling.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest thing for me to figure out. And that was kind of the key to our scaling. And what's interesting about that is I tried several high-paid guns initially to help me figure that out. I thought, hey, I'm just going to hire some expensive salespeople, and they're just going to take care of it for me. And number one, that was the wrong idea. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second part is that even if they did sell things, it was usually with bad expectations or the wrong circumstances or the wrong type of client or whatever that was. And I just realized, hey, I can't hand this off. I have got to get someone completely up to speed with how I do it. So I kind of took a different approach, which paid off big time. I hired this kid who was referred to our business. At this point, we probably had 15 people in the company. He had a friend that worked there that really loved being there and said, hey, you should come and work here. He applied. I said, I don't really need you. I don't know what I would even have you do if you came here. And the guy wouldn't leave me alone. He just said, hey, I think I can make a difference. I'd really like to be there. Pestered me for a little while. And finally, I just hired him because he wouldn't leave me alone.
That's awesome.
So this is a guy that's still in college but wants to work full time, and so he came in and literally just shadowed me for like a year. And I said, hey, try cold calling. That didn't really work that well. And I said, hey, try managing a couple of accounts. And that actually went okay. And then finally I said, you know what? Just do everything with me. And so we went and sold accounts together. He listened and watched how I did things. And, he was probably 24, 25 at the time. I can't remember. And he has now since then been one of the biggest reasons for our scale is he has built an inbound sales team where we sign up about 50 to 60 new customers a month. And I don't even have to think about it. He just handles all of it. And that was probably one of the biggest keys to our success, combined with the fact that we're actually really good at, for ourselves, what we do for our clients. And that's driving a lot of inbound leads via Facebook ads and AdWords. And so we feed the sales team and the sales team closes. And I would say that's been the key to our fast scale and growth.
I think that's such a great strategy and piece of advice because I know I have talked to a lot of founders, especially of smaller companies, who they either have two schools of thought. A, they don't want to sell at all because they got into their business because they're good at what they do. So they don't want to sell. I just don't want to sell. I'm not good at selling, right? That's their attitude. When they don't realize that in the beginning, they are the face, they are the founder, people are buying them for them, right? So that is important in the beginning, but then how do you move past that? To your point, how do you move past founder selling and find someone who can run with that and still represent you? And what a great way to do that is, I think this is a great piece of advice for those people who are trying to get out of that quandary of that. Bring that person in who's hungry enough to learn it, shadow you, train them to be a mini version of you to some extent, and go from there to build your sales team. Does that sound about what happened? Yeah,
there was a million pieces in between along the way and steps, but yeah, it was great, and that I think that has to happen. Otherwise, it's a lifestyle business, which is there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to take it to the next level, moving past founder-based selling is one of the hardest things for most businesses. And it's not even just a service-based business issue either. It could be technology. It could be services. It could be a lot of things. And what's interesting is eventually the team gets to the point where they're like, Jacob, we kind of don't want you to sell it anymore. We kind of, the sales team sets better expectations than you do at this point. And so it's like, they do a great job.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about your agency. I love that you're called Disruptive. So let's talk about what it is what you do and what you focus on and what's your niche.
Yeah, we, as an agency, we've decided to stay pretty selective in the areas that we help companies with. And so businesses come to us typically for two reasons. They want help advertising on Google or they want help advertising on Facebook. And that's why businesses come to us. We manage a lot of budget on Google and Facebook, probably about $200 million a year in budget. Companies come to us because they know that they're wasting or that they're not being effective with it. And so not only do we help them manage that, we typically complement that with two other things that we do, which is making sure that they have good end-to-end analytics in place so we can see what's actually turning into revenue and profits for the business so that we can be aligned strategically with what's a win for them is a win for us. And oftentimes we've found that it's not an AdWords or a Facebook issue. It's that they have a horrible website that they're pointing that traffic to. And so we run A/B tests with our design and dev team to figure out what version and experience of their website actually converts traffic at the highest rate. And that's how we kind of maximize the results that they're getting from their PPC campaigns. But that's why most companies come to us. Hey, we're looking to grow. We've got a good thing going, and we don't know how to do that on Google.
Interesting. You've hit on a couple things here, just talking about in the beginning of this, you talked about it's kind of like when people talk to me about, they come to us as a training company to say, hey, we need team building. Can you do team building? Because that's what we need. And they really need something else. They don't know how to articulate it. And they're like, we want to have a good time. We want to have fun. And in the beginning, I really struggled with that word, team building, because we're not doing, trust falls or scavenger hunts or things like that. We're really working on the soft skills of your people, of your team. And team building is about how do you work better together from a leadership standpoint. But because they don't know how to enunciate it or articulate it, you kind of have to go in one door, the door that they want you to go in, and then show them a different door. So when you talk about it's really like the website and where they're landing is more of the issue, but they can't see it when they're in it. And so it sounds like you kind of get in there and show them the different doors.
Yeah. And that's the thing where it gets really exciting, because imagine you're spending $10,000, $100,000 a month in advertising, and all of a sudden you figured out how to convert that traffic at twice the rate, same amount of money, and now you're getting twice the output. And that's the power that comes behind perfecting the experience that we send the traffic to, in addition to sending the right traffic in the first place, right?
Yeah.
You put those two things together, that's how you scale. That's how you use digital marketing to scale your business.
Let's talk a little bit about business in general. What has been your biggest challenge in your industry and as a business owner?
Wow. There's a lot of challenges in our industry. And I think that there's a couple that come to mind. Anytime that you have a strong service component of your business, finding, attracting, and developing talent is always going to be a big struggle. And so that's definitely been one for us as an organization. And some of the other things are perceptions in the industry. A lot of companies have dabbled in advertising online on Google or Facebook. They failed miserably at it. And so their conclusion was, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not, hey, clearly you did it wrong. It doesn't work. And so that's that perception in our industry that we have to overcome. There's also, because there is no real barriers in self-proclaiming oneself as the top agency of the universe, you get a lot of agencies out there that oftentimes don't know what they're doing and kind of create a reputation that we have to overcome as well. So those are the three things that come top of mind for me.
I'm going to dive into some of those. And again, similarly, when we've been asked to come in from a training perspective, they feel like they need training, but they're jaded as well because the training they've done in the past hasn't worked or it hasn't stuck. And it turned out that they just didn't have the right strategy behind it. They thought, well, they want that kind of come in and fix it in one shot and be done and not invest more time or money into it. So some parallels in that on what you're talking about. But I want to first dive into finding and developing talent, because that seems to be an issue in all industries, especially right now. What are some of the ways that you are finding and developing and keeping talent?
Well, one of my mantras here is that we don't penalize top performers. And you'll remember from the story that I shared earlier, that's ultimately what led me to leave and start my own business, is I felt like I was being penalized for being a top performer. And I didn't want to go down the path of settling, not working that hard, and just being okay with the status quo. And so literally every position in the company has a strong performance component that is very, not 100% within one's control, but not that far from it, where they get to basically choose how much do I want to do, how much am I, and we have measures to make sure they can do it well, but they have a lot of control over their income, their progress, and promotions in the company, but pretty objective criteria. And so that's regularly when we send out our monthly surveys, that's one of the favorite things that people mention about working here is I know exactly what I need to do to get to the next level. And I feel like a lot of that's in my control. Not all of it, but a lot of it. The other thing that we've actually found a lot of success with, it's always a challenge to find experienced talent at the right price point. And that's always challenging. I don't know that we've found the perfect solution for that. But when it comes to developing and bringing talent up through the ranks, what I've done is I regularly guest teach multiple classes in several universities that are local here to their internet marketing classes, to their marketing programs. And that's where we kind of just fill the pipeline. We've been doing that for years. A lot of people come and do internships. And a lot of the more junior people are coming up through that model. And that way they've got a full internship. They're working underneath someone for a while, really getting a feel for how things work before they're eventually kind of allowed to start working on clients themselves. But we've found that to be really effective. And it's great because, there's a lot of local talent that we're able to tap into because of that.
I have never heard that one. That's a really smart one. I like that. So those are some ways to find and then keep and develop talent. So let's talk a little bit about the perception of industry problems. How do you deal with some of that?
What I've typically found is that when someone doesn't agree with me, if I can just slap them across the face, they usually get it instantly. And so, no, I'm just kidding. We often just listen to me. I promise. I'm telling the truth. But what we've found is that oftentimes we can't expect people to just believe us. We can't expect people to just take our word for it that, hey, AdWords and Facebook does work really well. Believe me. It's demonstrable results that we can share through case studies and wins that we've had with our clients that are also willing to jump on the phone and talk with them about it. And so our reputation, our clients' experience, and the results that we've been able to measure, quantify, and publish are the best ways that we've found to position ourselves in a way that it's not like, hey, just believe me like you did your cousin who did your marketing for you before. It's let us demonstrate to you with hard numbers and real life experiences of how this really does work.
Well, that's pretty powerful because it is a challenge to come up with those. I was just talking about that in another podcast recording, that the challenge of marketing and advertising is it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure if you do a magazine ad. You don't know what the return on investment is. So I'd be curious to hear what are some of your ways for being able to measure the results? Well,
and from our standpoint, we've selectively chosen to focus in the areas where we can track things pretty dang well. Because we can track anything from an eyeball to a click to an action on the website through into a CRM with an actual sale or a refund or a discount or whatever that is. And so in our world, we actually have a lot of control over that because it's all very trackable. That's what I love about advertising on Google and Facebook. However, because we do often serve as consultants and strategic advisors in all things marketing, typically what we like to look at, in addition to the areas that you can track quite specifically, is what I refer to as a blended CAC or a blended customer acquisition cost. What can I afford to pay to get new customers across the board? And understanding that some channels simply will be more expensive than others. And so I've seen a couple of things happen in the industry. One is that everybody puts every single dollar that they've got into the most trackable channels online that are very direct response, what they can track, and they see what's going on, and they pull their budget from all the other things that they were doing before. And what I've found is that you do need a balance between the two. And so I think that especially for newer companies, it's better to invest in what you can track. But as you're progressing and growing as a company and scaling, you need some of that. You need to be thinking out ahead of how do we position ourselves in the market to get in front of more people that aren't even thinking about buying us right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what I like is a blended customer acquisition cost and staying within that, because what that does is it gives you some flexibility to try different channels and see how that moves the needle in the areas that are more trackable and sometimes in the areas that are less trackable.
And speaking of acquisition, customer acquisition, what are some of the ways that you go about finding your clients, and what's some advice that you would give entrepreneurs who are looking to get more clients?
Well, one thing that I am not a big fan of is the saying that the cobbler's kid goes without shoes. What we do for our clients is exactly what we do for ourselves. And I wouldn't feel comfortable providing it as a service if we weren't the absolute best at it for ourselves. And all of our clients now, of course, as we've grown and developed a reputation, we get referrals and those kind of things. But 90% of our business comes from running ads on Google and Facebook and pointing them to the right experience on our website, converting those into leads, working those leads and closing them into sales. And so we do exactly for ourselves what we do for our clients, which is everything that we just talked about.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, you would have to be able to prove that that's how you get business.
Yeah. And hey, we were an Inc. 500 company last year, and that's how we did it, was using these same channels.
Oh, so yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get to that position on Inc. 500?
Inc. 500 is simply based on last 3 years revenue growth. And we had over, I can't remember even what it was, I think 1,400% growth in the last 3 years. And so that's how you get on the list.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. Sure, you're still a pretty young company.
Yep, it will be our 5-year anniversary in September of 2018.
Oh, congratulations. I remember when I hit my 5-year mark, because all those statistics that businesses fail in the first 5 years. And it was something of that benchmark of getting past the 5. I was like, we're done. We're past it. And then it was like, it just gets a little bit harder each year. It's the sustaining it, but congratulations on that. So let's switch over a little bit. I want to talk about company culture. A lot of what we talk about on the Pivotal Leader is how do you build a culture? How would you define your company culture? Is everybody in your office? Do you have people who are spread out? I know, especially in the advertising and marketing world, we don't all have to be in the same office, and you're going to have a certain amount of contract workers. But how does that look in the makeup of your organization?
I don't know if you'd call it similar or different, but we actually like to keep everybody here in the office. We do occasionally have a remote employee, but it's usually a temporary time period and unique circumstances in which they're doing that. But we've actually got everybody here in an office here in good old Utah. And one of the things that I'm just a big advocate of is our mission statement is that we improve lives through results-based relationships. And what I see time and time again is that, well, let me tell you my least favorite phrase in the entire universe. And that is, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. and that phrase means, hey, I don't actually want to do anything for you, but to look like a good person, I'm going to pretend like I want to. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to ask you a question that I already know the answer, which is going to be, no, I'm good. Thanks for asking. And so we're just big believers in, no, we don't say that. We jump in and we actually do that. And we do that for each other. We do that for our clients. And, I feel like I've got a family here. And I think that's what people are here for as well, is that result is the foundation of a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. Results-based relationship is I'm putting everything into this, and that's the foundation of our relationship. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what we've tried to build our culture around.
So instead of let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, would you say that it's more of the approach of just being proactive and stepping in to help?
All it takes is changing a couple of words in that question. Mm-hmm. tell me one thing that I can do to make your life better, and I will not leave you alone until you tell me what that is.
Okay, excellent. No, it's great. No, I think that's important because I do think, and I've been guilty of using that phrase, because I think there's a couple of reasons why people use that phrase. They don't want to come off as too pushy. And so they're trying to say it in a nice way. Plus, they don't really want to your point. And they're trying to be nice about it. But a lot of times I think people don't realize what they're saying comes off a different way. In our company, one of our core values is take care of each other. And it's not just take care of each other internally. It's take care of our customers, take care of our vendors, take care, what do we need to do to take care of? And in that take care, it's about taking initiative, and it's not about asking. Recently we had someone get into a really horrific car accident with her son. And, when someone is sick and in the hospital, they don't even know what to ask for. They don't. So when you say, let me know if you need anything, is the worst thing you can say to someone in the hospital, because they can't think straight. So kind of our initiative is don't ask them what they need. Almost tell them what they need. And we organized basically a meal train, a visitation schedule. Okay, who's going to go? Because it was a mother and son in the hospital, and the poor father was running from floor to floor. Who's going to go and sit with him? Who's going to go bring him meals? Who's going to go tell him to take a rest, and you're going to sit there? And so it was more about showing them how we could help them versus asking them what they need and being of service to them in that way.
I think that's so powerful. Sometimes it's not appropriate to ask. Sometimes we just got to step up and do what's right. And one of the things that we've done is our philosophy is that we're going to, as a company, we're going to succeed at a rate that we are all going to do well for ourselves, and that there's going to be enough extra for us to make an impact in the community. Mm-hmm. And so we actually have a committee in the company where once a month, everyone gets to submit via survey a situation that's going on that they're aware of that we can chip in and help as a company.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we've got a pretty healthy budget for that, and a team that makes sure that those things happen. And it's simple things like going to the local food kitchen and serving and helping. Sometimes it's sending a family to Disneyland who just lost their dad in a car accident. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hiring a photographer to go and take pictures of a family whose mom is got very little time left due to cancer. Mm. And those are the kind of things that sometimes they cost a lot of money. Sometimes they're very inexpensive.
Yeah.
But we've got a company and that collectively we are all committed to making sure that we're giving back and that we're looking for those opportunities. And I'm just a big believer in that, because we're all going to be in that position. And I certainly have been in my life where I've needed the help and support from other people as well. And so while we're in a position, let's be those people. And when that time comes for us, hopefully we've got those people around us as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, someone in your position, when you're in that leadership role, that CEO role, the top dog, I think it's also challenging. I've experienced this when I've had some things happen. You're not going to ask your people necessarily to be there to rally for you. And what I've also learned is that when you're in a certain position, people don't want to see you ever in a weaker position because you're their guiding light. So where do you go to get the support, the advice? Where do you get that kind of stuff for yourself to continue to make you a better entrepreneur, a better boss, a better leader, a better CEO?
It's interesting. I've found what you've just said to be accurate, and in some situations not accurate. There are circumstances where I need a group of peers that I can go and learn from because mm-hmm. they've been through similar circumstances. And so I've had a lot of success with business coaches, mm-hmm. therapists, and I have loved being a part of the entrepreneurs organization.
Oh, that's right.
As EO.
Yeah, you're an EO.
And I've got a really tight group of people that I look up to more than anyone else, in this life, that just are great at helping me through hard times. But what's interesting, Gina, is I've also found that it is actually quite empowering for in the organization for people to feel needed. And there's balance to that. And I know that you and I are on the same page with that. But sometimes showing that vulnerability of this is a challenge we have as a business, and we need your help to figure this out because I don't have the answers. Those are sometimes the opportunities where leaders start to step up when given those opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's challenging because being vulnerable like that is hard because I want to feel like I've got it all together all the time and that I've got the plan that's going to work. Don't worry. And sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And I love getting the support of a rallying team around that. Now, that being said, if that's what it was all the time, things would probably fall apart pretty quick.
Yeah. It really is. I have found it to be a really interesting balancing act. And similar to you, I'm part of Vistage versus EO. And I've found that to be, a great place for me to go to peers where I can talk about things that I can't necessarily talk about with my team. Because when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you start the business from the ground up and the people that join you from the ground up, and it starts out as like a bunch of friends and family. And then as you grow as a boss, you have to start kind of drawing some lines, which becomes uncomfortable. You don't always want to show your vulnerability, but then you need to show your vulnerability so that they can understand why certain decisions are made. And to your point, to get people to step up a little bit and to give them that power to step up. I've found it to be quite the interesting balancing act. I haven't fully mastered it. I don't think I ever will. I think being just hyper aware of it is probably half the battle. So what is next for you? What is next for your company? What are some of the next big things you want to tackle? Our
big goal is to eventually get to 100 million in annual revenue. And so that's, a ways out in the future for us, but we're committed to getting there. And to me, it's less about the revenue number and it's more about the impact that we're having in the business community and with our colleagues and in the community. And so whether that number is 100, whether that number is 50, or whether that number is 5 billion, we just want to make the biggest impact that we have. And that also comes with the challenge because we only want to grow as far as we can continue to make the level of impact that we currently are. And so that's what quite often will create some of the growth caps and limitations on us. So that's kind of the big business goal. And then personally, we're at the stage in the business right now where really developing and getting the right leaders, executive team in place is my focus right now. And so that's what I'm focused on.
Okay, good. What would be some advice you would give to the rising CEO or entrepreneur of, this is something you definitely need to always keep in mind as you're growing your business or starting your business?
There's two things that come to mind when you ask that question. The first one is there's absolutely such a thing as bad revenue. And when I look back, I would have been more selective about the types of revenue that I was willing to take on as a business. It's easy to get distracted with too many streams of revenue that we focus, taking on the wrong clients that are, when you really take the time to look at it, there's no way you're making money on them because they're so high maintenance and demanding. So there is absolutely such a thing as bad revenue. And the opportunity cost that comes with bad revenue is high. It is a very high opportunity cost. And so that's the first thing that I would bring up. And then the second thing that I would bring up, and I'm still not the best at it, but I've gotten a lot better at it, is just scheduling a little bit of time on my calendar on a daily basis for gratitude. Right? Look backward and feel good about where we've come from and where we're going.
Yeah.
The people that are contributing to that. If you leave a little bit of place in your day for gratitude, the whole journey just becomes a lot more sweet and enjoyable. And those are the two things that came top of mind for me.
Oh, that's great. That is so great. And I know I remind myself all the time about gratitude, like when the day is bad. I'm like, okay, right? But if we did that daily, it could be a game changer. We're near the end, and one thing that I've always been asking every one of our guests is, aside from the support that you get from EO and therapists, and I'm all for therapists as well, because that's been, and a business coach. I think you need all of that, frankly. Do you have any favorite books or podcasts that you listen to or read?
Yeah, I'm an Audible junkie. And
Me too. Me too.
I usually listen to about 2 or 3 books a month.
Okay.
I used to be crazy about it and try and listen to it on 2 times speed so I could get through a bunch of them. And then I realized my retention was horrible. And it was more about how many could I fit in a month.
I can only do 1.3. That's as fast as I can listen.
Yep, that's about where I'm at now. And I'll tell you a couple of books that have been that I've read several times that have been very influential, specifically for my circumstances. I don't know how helpful they'd be for everyone else, but Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute is a very story format, great book that has really changed how I view my relationships personally and professionally and how I approach those. I also love Essentialism by Greg McKeown, I believe is how you say his name.
Okay.
And it's the art, the disciplined pursuit of less. And each time I have read those books, I have made more life-altering changes than other books.
Wow.
And so those are 2 that I would throw out there.
Okay, great. Awesome. I'm going to, because I am an Audible junkie as well. So this is a question that I've started asking like maybe the last 10 podcast interviews. And I'm like literally developing a library of books to listen to.
There you go.
So it's a little selfish. Hey, we're about to wrap up, but if people want to connect with you, connect with your agency, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Yeah, a couple of things. If you want to connect with me directly, just connect with me on LinkedIn, Jake Baadsgaard. There's 4 A's in there. You're not going to find very many others. So that should be easy. Or you can just email me directly at jake@disruptiveadvertising.com. If you're interested in learning more about the agency and learning how to grow your business using Facebook and Google, just reach out to us through disruptiveadvertising.com, and we'd love to have a conversation. We have a free audit tool that we can run and show you what's working and what's not working if you're already running ads in this space. If you've never done it before, we put together growth strategies for people and how they can use it. And either way, you're left with a deliverable that you can go and execute on your own, or you can use us to help.
Oh, that's great. That's a great tool. I love your website. And I think, one of the pieces of advice you gave earlier about chasing bad revenue, I think it's so important to be really clear on what it is that you do. And your website is pretty fantastic because it's really clear where your focus is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you once again, Jake, for being on the podcast with us today on the Pivotal Leader.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's time to wrap up this episode of the Pivotal Leader. Thank you to all of you listeners for listening today. Until next time, if you want to maximize, you need to be willing to improvise. Time for that cool voiceover guy to take us out.
You've been listening to The Pivotal Leader with Gina Trimarco, owner and founder of Pivot 10 Results and Carolina Improv Company. You can find show notes for this episode on our website at thepivotalleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. If your company needs help pivoting to success, visit pivot10results.com or email Gina at pivot10results.com. And until next time, if you're feeling stuck in your business, it's probably time to pivot.